Alright, about to pull this Honda Pilot in here and get started doing timing belt and water pump spark plugs. Hey look, it's not a blue car. What the heck? Alright. Gotta get this inner fender out. See how tough that crank bolt's gonna be to get loose. And my knife doesn't do its tilt. Anyway, gotta pop a bunch of these guys out. Get this piece down and out of the way. I'm missing one of the clips already, so assuming this thing's been worked on already. It's got 200,000. It's supposed to service the timing belt at 100,000, I believe. These things can be a booger sometimes to get out. Wedge that one under there. There's this guy back here. Let's see if that bolt's going to be a pain in the neck or not. It's a fine thread bolt and they put Loctite on it, so what I do to get it hot, and hopefully the Loctite will break loose. Be loud again. Pressure filled up. Got the big pneumatic gun, a shorter socket. Hopefully this will break this thing loose. This thing's really loud. Well, finally got it broke loose. What I did was put this breaker bar on here, turned the starter over. The starter torque broke it free, so lucked out on that deal. Now that balancer's hotter than hell, but I had to get this bolt out regardless. Got a big long bolt, fine thread, and it's got Loctite on it, so yeah, it's a pain in the neck. And it's hot. Hot. Alright. Get some of this crap out of the way. Move to the next phase. Next thing is going to be getting the drive belt off. Got to get a 14 millimeter down there on that bolt. Long wrench. Release the tension. Pop the belt off. Light fell down. I'll move the big light up here so we can see better. Get this thing out here. Inspect it for cracks. Actually looks pretty good, but I'll see if they want to replace it. They probably won't be able to replace it since I got it all apart and stuff. So usually what I do is get power steering pump out of the way, tensioner out of the way, make itself a lot more room. The pump looks fairly new. Common issue on these two, power steering pumps go out making noise and whatnot. Got a bolt here, got a bolt underneath, kind of hard to see. I'll pop that pulley off to make it a little easier for you to see it. see what I'm doing, but this nut off here. Just wiggle that pulley off. Don't pry on it because you bend it. It's kind of chintzy. And it pops off usually like that. Then you got a bolt here, 12 millimeter. My battery low. No. Bolt is just tight. Flip it up. I'll tie it back with a bungee or something. Sorry. So now I'm gonna get that tensioner out of there. I think I do that from the bottom. Now we gotta work on getting that mount out of there. May have to put the jack under the engine. Let's see. Gotta get this out of here. Yeah, big 17 millimeter bolt right there. Pretty tight. Millimeters there to hold that motor mount bracket to another bracket. Engine's probably gonna drop a little bit. I didn't. Okay, good times. Well, I had to resort to taking the whole bracket and everything off instead of just pulling that bolt out. Whoever worked on this last stripped out the cross thread of that bolt in there. So now I gotta take all this shit out of the way to get to it. Unfortunately, there's bolts that go down this way. I got two of them out. I think there's a third one I'm trying to get to here without taking a bunch of shit loose. It looks like I'm kind of screwed. Yep, I got it. Alright, got the whole thing loose now. 5-pound bag here. You see that big bolt goes through there. Somebody cross-threaded it on this end. When they put it back together, they freaking put it in there and ran it in with a gun, impact gun. So that was an extra probably 30 minutes it took me to get this thing tore down. So, but on to the next step. Get shit out of the way. I gotta get this off. There's bolts that go through this way. So I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it. I gotta do a lot of it from underneath, I'm pretty sure. There's one there. There's one there you can actually see. So what I had to do, these bolts hold this to the frame. That motor mount's actually broken. I may have to call them and see if they want me to put one in it when I got it apart. So next we're gonna get this out. Here. You might be able to see what I'm doing there. Do most of this job with a 14 millimeter, 17 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter, and a 12 millimeter. These are 14s. And they're fine thread, super long. Like everything on a Honda engine, they like using fine thread bolts, but it's actually good because more threads, less likely they are to back out. Speed the process up. That's a long bolt. I'll leave that one in there because it's kind of hanging up. Bottom, I gotta get it from underneath. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Don't lose these bolts because they're kind of unique bolts. Got a little collar on them so they don't break the plastic. I don't know about you guys, but this fat boy's sweating. Oh, you gotta pop that wire. Loom. Oh crap. Okay. Bolt is a 10 millimeter and it's rounded off. So I got a 3/8 6 point. I'm gonna try and hammer on there, break that dude loose. Make sure it's all the way on there. Give it a little zip. There we go. Got it out. Awesome sauce. That's the bottom cover. And then that big hunkin' motor mount bracket. Now it'll come out. See the timing cover bolts too. Timing cover bolts see it right there. So there's this little shim. You need to make sure you always put that back in there. Now we're going to get that pin don't come out. Lined up. Hopefully. See that little dot on the crank right there? There's a pointer right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a pointer. We'll roll that around, and then up top, up here, there's, I'll line that up with number 1, which is right there. So I got to roll that motor all the way around one rotation. I'm going to sit you up here while I turn it from below with the crank bolt. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know if that oil line's in the way or not. Hard telling. Anyway, putting the crank bolt in it. Turn it over here. Down here. crank bolt in. Taking those out yet. We actually are going to do this though. Man, this thing got some damage for just a second here. Getting closer. Too far. Yeah, see, that's lined up with that. Check up here. And yeah, intake should say number 1. That mark lined up there. This back one is a little trickier. There's a mark right there, and it's lined up with that one. I'll take a paint marker and jazz those up. So I like to take the yellow paint marker. Need more light in there. Just make a mark on that mark, and I make a mark on the top of the pulley, and I make a mark on the back of the pulley, which sometimes doesn't work so well. And then I color in that mark so I can see it. Same thing here. Mark on the tooth. Mark on there. Go down here. Get the ratchet out of the way. I like to mark there, and there, and there. I even go down here, just scribe right across. Make my own marks just to make sure everything gets lined back up. The hydraulic tensioner's right here. Puts pressure on that tensioner to keep the belt tight. And it's fed by oil pressure, so there's a bolt there and there. Make sure you keep those bolts with the tensioner because they're a specific length and they're hardened. We're actually going to be replacing this tensioner because I'm putting a kit in it. Always do the kit. We get everything new. Had some failures over the years. It's not fun. Especially as pain in the ass these are to do. You don't have to do it again. Another somewhat rusty bolt. It broke free without too much of a fight. You can see. Well, let's move it. It's not loose yet. My battery is dying. That's why it's not breaking anything loose. There's the hydraulic tensioner, and it's actually leaking oil. So, yeah, fun time. No, actually, this one doesn't run off oil pressure. It's just like a pressurized, like a shock. So now you can start working the belt off carefully without misaligning anything. There's the timing belt. Actually looks pretty good. I don't know if it's a factory belt or a Dayco. I'm going to be putting a Dayco on it. I can't really tell. The marks are worn off of it. So, well, next thing we got to do is get the tensioner arm off and this pulley off. Again, more fine thread bolts. I believe the kit comes with new bolts, so Make sure you use the new bolts. If you're just doing a timing belt, you don't have to take these off. We're doing a water pump, so we gotta take these off. Well, you gotta take them off regardless if you're replacing them, but a lot of times if you're just doing a belt, then you don't have to take these off. Just start putting the belt back on. But we're doing a water pump, so this bolt goes through the water pump. That's it. Mile-long fine thread bolt again. Put that out there. It's got a spacer in it. You need to save that. That one's still tight. Alright, see, another fine thread bolt. Loctite on it. It's a special bolt, so try and keep it with the pulley. So now, water pump bolts. Get the water pump out. Get your bird's eye view. Got one bolt left here in the back. I think there's 5 small bolts that hold on. And those other big motor mount bolts and all that shit holds it on there. Just take a screwdriver. Give it a little bump. Put your hand. So it went to hand. Surprisingly enough. There's the water pump. Alright. Time to order some parts. On the parts house. Timing belt, water pump kit, fill out the pulleys, get some anti-reeze. We're going to do spark plugs. So I got the Dayco kit of everything you need. Timing belt, hydraulic tensioner, water pump and the gaskets in there. A little O-ring gasket, I'll show you that in a minute. There's that fancy bolt, pulley, tensioner arm with a new pulley. There's a shim that goes in here. There's instructions that tell you, I think it's only on certain models, but it tells you the torque. And then it usually comes, yeah, see, it'll come with the book. It's like the pages out of a big timing belt book. It's always, you know, pertains to whatever vehicles. And here's the instructions for that, putting that shim in there and everything. So, here we go. Get the torque. So just gotta work this gasket into the grooves, and there's little ears in there that hold it down. Just make sure you push it down in there real good and firm. A lot of guys will put weather strip adhesive and stuff on it to hold them in. That's all fine and dandy. If you got it, you know, go for it. Just make sure this thing's in here good. It doesn't pop out on you when you install the water pump. There's some dowel pins on here that line it up in the block. So let's kind of get that in there. Go around it a couple times, make sure it's pushed in there good. And then it's ready to start putting on the engine. Start assembling this dude. Oh, that's not in the right spot. It must have warmed up in here. The heater's just shut off. Swap that back around. This engine turns clockwise, so you want to install the belt counterclockwise. That way you end up with the slack on this side where the tensioner is. Let's see if I can do this from up top. Get it down in there. We want it in the grooves. Teeth are meshing down in there. Sink you back in here. pull this tight. You gotta go under the valve cover piece, which is kind of a bear, to get everything lined up. There we go. Make sure that's tight, which it's not. This is where it's tedious. This is the tedious part. I think I can get it any tighter. So the bitch of it is you're gonna go into this groove in the back side of the timing cover. There we go. I just have to manhandle a little bit. Get it around that pulley. There's another groove in the back that's got to go in. I think it's all the way around it. No, it's not. It popped up out of here on me. Gotta run it all around. Oh! Yeah, it's all jumbled up here in the back. There we go. So now, you always got to keep in mind, if you're putting a new belt on, you know, it's the correct tolerance. The old one probably stretched a little bit, so if something's out of line, that belt is not going to go on there, so it's got to pay good attention. I had to roll this one around. It was bumped up in the back, that's why it wouldn't go on a pulley. So it's all the way around. It's on the tensioner pulley. I'll tighten that fulcrum arm back down. And you can see the slack is on this side, which is exactly where you want it. I'll show you the tensioner here in a minute. One thing I forgot to do before I put that bracket in, but it's okay. You need to turn this crank over twice and make sure all the marks are lined up properly. Get the ratchet and extension out again. Crank this dude over and make sure the marks are correct. Make sure the belt don't jump it too. Compression strip. Lined up. Yep. Lined up there. Lined up there. And I don't think we're lined up in the back. That sucks. That means I gotta take it back off. I can't really see. I bet that's what happened when the... Well, that's why you check this shit. Turn the engine over twice before you let it rip, because it was off a tooth on the back pulley, so I had to take it all back apart and do it again. So that's why you roll that thing over twice and recheck your marks. That cam back there, that mark was back here instead of here. Sucks, but I got it back together, so I gotta hustle now and get it done. We got a snowstorm coming and I gotta get this thing back like an hour ago. Oops. Dripsel. I said about that, but I gotta get that bolt out there. I don't know if this little impact will do it. Got crank on that bitch to get it moving. I put shim back on there. Make sure it's on the bezels toward the outside. It helps hold the belt in there. Keep it from flopping out of there. So, time to get these covers on, get this thing together. I gotta do spark plugs in it yet, and we got a snowstorm coming. I gotta get it done. Get it back to my buddy's house. My buddy Byron actually is my boss. One of his customers, and he's just busy, so helping him out with his stuff. Get all these started. I'm gonna run them down. 12 millimeter. Tighten that bolt down. Snug it down good. Not letting it quite straight on there. Okay, that's good. Run that other bolt down. I think it was a 14. That's all the other stuff. Yep. 14. Make sure it's tight. Probably going way too fast for everybody, but like I said, I gotta get this thing done. We'll be up Schitt's Creek. Make sure you get this on there and get there's a Woodruff key. A Woodruff key right there, and there's a groove. Make sure you get that lined up. And then tighten this down with a heavy duty weapon. Lighting sucks today. It's dark and dreary and gross outside. Always this weird shit will get you. Now we'll line it up. I'll show you on that other cover what the deal was. Maybe if I remember. Get it. If I could keep holding something today, I'd be. Otherwise, you're going to die. One you can't see. Okay. Now to this front one. I'm going to move this big right over here. There. I'm running out of battery and everything. So what was fighting us this groove right here. It's got to line up on top of the lower cover. So you got to kind of put it down on top of it. I'll work on that motor mount for a minute so we can get it back in there. Okay. Downhill slide of this freaking nightmare. Tight. Put the bracket in there for the reservoir. The dogs are out there barking like they always do. Never mind them. First. Put it in there backwards. Shit. Really getting tired. Luckily, I don't think the spark plugs are going to be too bad of a deal. Get that in there. Water jug back in there. Get all these wires back up where they go. AC line snapped in. Let's see, we're gonna put a bolt that goes in there. Bracket. You get to up there it is. There we go. Put that back on. Keeps the wiring protected. Alright, get the belt on it, the wheel on it. Alright, got it fired up, running good. I broke the coolant, and then we'll be doing the spark plugs in another episode. I also noticed this air intake pipe's broken too. We need to get that. So, but hopefully you got something out of that on the timing belt deal. It kind of fought me, but I got it done, and it's running like a champ. So.